forget. And, yeah. Who else has arrived? Double Tim, thank you so much for that super chat, man. Really appreciate that. That's really nice of you, Tim. Thank you so much. We're going to get going here in 5 seconds. Let's rock and roll, everybody. Get your horns up. Hi, Luscious Jules. Here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates on around the world, wherever they are. And where are we here? And on our digital side as well. Yeah, I've already blown the intro, so might as well just continue from here. I'm going to tell you right now, I have no idea where I am. There you go. You can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you, including Rockin' Out to Bumblefoot, The Newswire, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. Now, normally on strange days, we have Butch Wachowski from UFO Cop here, but he had some dental surgery today, and, he was just looking too much like a chipmunk in order to be on tonight's show. So, we pass the torch over to the man, the myth, and the fortean legend, Lon Strickler. He wears the crown for the fortean culture and a man behind the ever-famous phantomsandmonsters.com. He is an accomplished author and one of the most respected researchers when it comes to anything paranormal and cryptid. And Lon Strickler, we are always happy to have you here, that you're a good friend of Spaced Out Radios. Thank you so much for coming on in. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm glad to see you again. And hello to everybody in the chat and out there in the ether.
I can't believe I forgot my intro. Like, I have it written down. I went
totally
it must
be my influence there, I guess. But, it happens.
Well, it's that power beard you are rocking right now.
Okay.
That's exactly it. It's the power beard. I mean, I'm just in awe of it. Just in awe of it. I really thank you for stepping in, for filling in for Butch, and I know you and Butch are best of friends as well. And, to have you come on in here and share your wealth of knowledge with us is a pleasure to us, because, both of you have such big shoes to fill in this entire genre that we call the paranormal and supernatural, that it feels good to have someone like you here, man.
Well, I appreciate you, giving me a shot to come on and talk to you every once in a while. I very well appreciate that.
For people who may not be familiar with your work, Lon, and I know it goes back a long time, but why the hell do you chase around monsters?
Well, that's a good question, I guess. But I've been involved in paranormal ever since I was a kid. I had my own encounter at the Gettysburg battlefield when I was 9 years old, and that kind of started it all off. And, I didn't even know what a cryptid was at that time. And as I got older, and, I moved down to Maryland, and I was outdoorsman, used to do a lot of fishing and hunting at the time. And one day I had a Bigfoot show up in front of me, and that kind of rocked my world and changed things.
How far away was it? Tell us that story.
Well, the story is I was on the South Branch Patapsco River, which is east of Sykesville, Maryland, about a mile downstream. And I was fly fishing. And I used to fly fish for everything, So I was in the river with chest waders on, actually fly fishing for a rock bass, I think, at the time. Anyway, I saw a dog across the river in the bushes and such, and I just didn't pay him any mind. But then when he yelped, then I looked up, and when they yelped, this thing stood out in the bushes. Now the weeds were pretty high. This was in May, so it was This was May 9th, 1981. This thing was, I could probably see it chest high, but, when it stood up, it just started walking to my left. And when it stepped out of the weeds, then it turned towards me, and we were about 50 foot away, so we were damn close. And we kind of locked eyes on each other, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what the hell this is, but, we're here, and I ain't going nowhere. I knew this thing would chase me down. I started running. So, yeah, I mean, it was definitely a male, whatever it was. The genitalia was very visible, but it had a lot of hair on it. It was very hairy. About 8 foot, huge, muscular, But the face looked more human than it did anything else, and it had that real thick brow ridge, slightly conical head, but the facial features were human. I said it looked Neanderthal. So we watched each other for about 10 seconds. It was making a clicking sound with its teeth, gnashing its teeth. I've heard of other sightings where the same thing has happened. I kind of think it's like a nervous tick or something they have when they encounter something they don't know or are unfamiliar with. I got a kind of a whiff from like fox urine or with something that similar to that. Like I used to use that on my boots when I used to go deer hunting, for masking. But that's what it sounded like, and it smelled like. So, we did that for a bit. Then it turned around and quickly walked up into the woods. And I'm standing there with my jaw in the water, not knowing what the hell I just saw. So I just walked out and grabbed my gear and went up into my car and drove up to the nearest phone I could find. And back then they had phone booths, and there was a bar right there. So I stopped the bar. I should have gone in, but I stopped the bar and used the phone booth. And I called the police, the local police, and, I told them, I think I told them I saw a Bigfoot. I don't know what the hell I told them. I don't really remember. But, I kind of heard the snickers and all that over the phone. And so anyway, the woman who was on the phone told me, she said, well, go back and, we'll have a police officer there. It's only like a 5-minute drive back to where it happened at. So I figured, well, great. I got to go back there, and this thing's out running around out there. I don't know how long I'm going to be out there. But to my surprise, when I got there was a Maryland State police officer already there, and he had one of those long wooden barriers up across the road already. So because of that, I either thought, well, he either found the call or heard the call on the radio, or, something's going on here. So as I pulled up to him, he had me roll down the window, and he said, you got to get out of here. And he was actually pointing at me. You got to get out of here. I said, well, I made a call about a Bigfoot. I don't care. You got to get out of here. It's dangerous to be here. Okay. So I wasn't going to argue with the guy, so I went ahead and went home. I lived in Sykesville, so I was pretty quick getting home. I guess about an hour later, I decided, well, I'm going to go back on down there and see what's going on. So I drove back, and by that time, there were cars everywhere. In fact, I had to park about a quarter mile from the location because of so many cars, and I walked back up.
Like police cars?
Well, no, it was, I don't know if it was police car. I think they looked like regular cars. So I don't know if these were officers that were driving their cars or got the call, or I don't know. But there were a lot of cars and trucks and stuff. So, all the official vehicles were near the site. As I walked up there, I could see those. But when I walked up to the barrier, there was a Howard County police officer there at the time. And I walked up to him. I said, what's going on? He started laughing. He said, somebody said they saw a Bigfoot. Started laughing. Well, I wasn't going to tell him I was the one that made the report. And I said, okay. So I'm watching, and I mean, there's people everywhere. There's guys with dogs. They had a big white tent set up across the river where I had seen this thing. There were police officers, cars from the state, Howard County, Baltimore County, everywhere. Sykesville was there, and there were feds. And back then, the feds used to drive those old black Wagoneers. the GMC. I think it was GMC or Jeep. I don't know what it was. But anyway, that's what they used to drive back then. There was two of those sitting there, and I heard a helicopter. Now, I didn't see the helicopter, but I heard it. Well, I'm thinking, okay, so something is definitely going on here. So I stood there a while, then I just turned around and went back home. So when I got home, I called the local television stations in Baltimore. And there was three of them at the time, major, network stations. And they said, oh, yeah, we're interested. Give us, we'll call you back, or, after we get try to look into it, or you call us back, or, okay, sounds good. Well, 4 days later, I didn't hear a thing. So I called one of the stations, and the news editor actually got on there, the desk guy, and he told me, I told him who I was and what I was calling about. Yeah, I'm not interested, and hung up on me. Okay. Well, I wonder what that's all about. So eventually, I had found out that there had been a Bigfoot sighting about 3 hours before mine downstream near Marrittsville, Maryland. And because I had actually seen the report, because a police officer from Sykesville later got a hold of me and told me that what had happened to me actually is the true story. But he never knew what it was about when he was there. He found out later what it was about. And that area had 9 years previously had a Bigfoot, a lot of Bigfoot sightings, what they called the Sykesville Monster. And it was down along the river. There was a neighborhood down there. It was an African-American neighborhood. All these folks were having something going on. Either this thing was getting into chicken pens, messing with dogs and pets, actually breaking into a couple of homes, broke into a garage. This thing was in one of the garages one time. One of the Sykesville cops went up to the door to the garage and flashed his light, and he ended up on the ground with the door on top of him. Oh, this thing just busted out. So there was definitely something. So anyway, when I found out all this stuff, I was lucky enough to be working with an older gentleman whose family was part of these two families that lived down there along the river. And he introduced me to a lot of people that had been part of the original sighting. And I got an opportunity to interview all of them, plus more. When that story broke, and it eventually made the national news, but it was the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper that did break the story. They got the drawings and the witness testimony. So that's where it actually started at. But, I knew nothing about all that because I had just moved down to Maryland. And, so I'd only been there a couple of years. I never heard a thing about it. So after that happened, I was hooked, man. I
don't blame you.
I still doing hauntings, but I was really hooked into the cryptid thing. So that's where it all started at.
For you, as you've continued this journey, you have built one of the most successful cryptid websites at phantomsandmonsters.com. And for you, the way it has taken off and the stories that you have been able to make, did you ever think that, after that experience that you would become a bastion for information for this field?
No, because I literally had to be talked into doing the blog. I had always collected a lot of stories everywhere I went. And, I was just writing them down. I remember one time we went down to Florida. And we were stopping a lot of these roadside places and stuff and talking to people. And they would tell us about their skunk ape encounters and this and that. So I was just sitting there writing longhand and keeping an idea, keeping a log of what people were telling me. And I did that from like 84, 85 up until I started the blog in 2005. So that was a big database I had of stories and such. But I never really thought much of publishing it. I thought maybe, one day I'll write a book or something. But I was doing investigations at certain locations in Maryland. So there was a Maryland ghost site that had asked me to do a page and write things for them. And I did that for about a year. But then the guy who ran it said, you know what? you're wasting your talent, man. You need to write a blog. So that's where it started at.
For you, as you look back on the field and you've done everything, you've interviewed some of the biggest names in this field, you become one of the biggest names in this field for information. What are some of the benefits of doing what you do, Lon? Because there's a lot of people who think out there, I would love to do something like this. I just don't know how to get started. I don't know where to go. Maybe there's too much. How do I get my information? What says you?
Well, I had just always had patience enough to listen to people. And if anybody who wants to get into this, I would say, get the reports, write them down. Don't ask too many questions at first until you get all the information. Then, start asking questions. They have made you part of their experience, basically. So when it comes to that, it's time, it's imperative for you to give them the benefit of the doubt, look into what they're talking about, be confidential. And, if you find out otherwise, then, you just tell them, well, I'm just not buying what you're telling me. But, you as time goes on, you kind of pick up who's trying to pull the wool over your eyes and such. But I've just been lucky. I'll admit that. I've been really lucky. I've kind of fallen into a lot of these sightings, a lot of these flaps. It was like a culmination when I finally got this thing that's going on in Chicago. Because when that started in 2011, there were like 3 sightings in South Chicago. And there was a bit of stir about it back then, but it wasn't much of anything. But of course, now when the sightings started coming into MUFON in 2007, early 2017. Then it was starting to get out there, and I was fortunate enough to have an individual, Manuel Navarrete, who lived in Chicago, and he has a website, UFO Clearinghouse, and he was interested in what's going on, so he started sharing it with me. And he started tracking people down. Then I picked up other investigators like Tobias Whalen up in Madison and a few other people along the line, including Rosemary Ellen Guiley, worked with my original team. And, so we were kind of watching each other's backs and following each other up with these sightings. So, it was, we were really lucky. And word of mouth, and then I had put ads up for people who had seen something unusual on Google and such to contact us or contact me, and we will listen to you. I didn't say we won't believe you, but we're going to listen to you. And that's when it went crazy. I mean, it blew up after that.
So out of all your accomplishments that you have had over your years of chasing down monsters, what would you say your top 3 are?
Well, this case here in Chicago is number 1, definitely. I had been involved with, I had a winged humanoid encounter myself in 1988 with 2 other gentlemen. And, that kind of started off the winged humanoid thing. I had heard of the Mothman. Everybody heard of the Mothman. And when I had that encounter here in Pennsylvania, I wasn't really sure what we had seen. And I followed up on it, and there had been subsequent sightings along the Conewaga Creek for years. And, I eventually put it in my blog in 2008, which was 20 years after the fact. And I started getting people contacting me about it and telling me what they were seeing. And, that was a boom for me. I mean, people started locally in particular in South Central Pennsylvania in Maryland were starting to pick up some of the, what I was doing. So, I had gotten a lot of notoriety because of that. It wasn't always good notoriety, but, that's just comes with the territory.
Of course.
And, of course, my Bigfoot sighting, those have to be in the top 3. I mean, the personal sightings. But really, this whole thing in the Chicago and the region around Chicago and the great Lake Michigan is definitely the big one so far. And it's just, we had still been working on this after all these years, and we've kind of evolved as far as what we're looking, how we're looking. We're going into metaphysical aspects of these things now. We haven't really had any tangible evidence other than anecdotal and, occasional photo here and there, but none of them are discernible, really. So, this is, am I obsessed by it? Maybe. But, I want to get the truth. I've got a bunch of other people working with me who want to find the truth. And, this is all culminated as well into the Phantoms and Monsters 14 research team, which we have 22 boots on the ground investigators all over the country, up in Canada, as well as about 15 or 16 affiliate groups that also work with us. So, even if I can't find somebody in that group to find, to go out and look for something, I can always find somebody. And that's because of the blog. So, yeah, it kind of runs on downstream, but, I've been lucky. I can't say much more than that. I've just been very fortunate with good people.
And I can understand that, and I can see that because, the one thing that I always try and tell people when they're getting involved in this field, Lon, is search out, before you try and link on anybody, search them out. See who the right people are, see who the wrong people are. And, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get burned, but for the most part, you're going to be safe going with that. And for you, as we got about 90 seconds left, who is your mentor in this field?
I really haven't had a mentor, but I've had good people I've been associated with from the beginning. When I first started getting involved with Beyond the Edge Radio, it was Eric Altman and Sean Forker were the guys I was associating with a lot. And then eventually Butch and I hooked up, and, Butch and I have kind of worked hand in hand ever since then. So, we've added to the group, and Rosemary Ellen Guiley was a very, very informative mentor to me over the years. She taught me a lot of things. So, I've been very lucky.
That's awesome. Because not everybody has that in this field. A lot of people are playing catch up. A lot of people are, trying to find their own place. 30 in like 1 minute here. What's your best advice that you could give people getting into this field?
Don't be intimidated. I mean, if somebody wants to give you a bunch of flack about what you're doing, just let it roll off the back and don't worry about it. I've been criticized by some bigger names a long time, and I don't worry about it. I just keep my nose to the grindstone and keep doing what I do. And honestly, I think those witnesses and those experiencers appreciate that. And I just don't listen. I just don't listen to a lot of these people who say they're skeptics or don't want anything but scientific evidence. Well, that's not going to get you answers.
No, that is very true. Lon, I'm going to get you to hold on right there while we get ready to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He is filling in for Butch Witkowski, who had some pretty heavy dental surgery, so that's why he's not here for Strange Days. But the good news is Mr. Lon Strickler is to fill on in for his buddy Butch and our buddy Butch. Coming up next, Mothman. We're getting more sightings again, and Lon's right on top of it. We'll be back right after this. All right, buddy, we're clear.
Okay.
Excuse me. That's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Quick half hour there.
It's been a lot of stuff. I've been on a lot of shows the last couple of weeks. I mean, people, with all this July 22nd sighting at O'Hare has just really raised some eyebrows. And then we had another sighting up at the Wisconsin State Fair. And the Milwaukee papers butchered that, but you know how the press is.
What did they say it was?
It was a demon.
A demon?
Yeah. Everything's a friggin' demon.
There was a demon flying around the county fair.
Yeah. Well, no, the state fair.
Well,
right up Milwaukee.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've been busy.
Love it. Love it. That's good stuff. We'll get into that here next.
Okay. No problem. Anything you want to talk about, my friend.
I know. You're way too good to us, man. Way too good to us. What'd you get up to this past weekend?
I didn't. Well, this weekend I kind of laid back, and we were doing a lot of metaphysical work with with this, with this thing at O'Hara. As you know, that there's a graveyard or cemetery right at O'Hara. It's been there forever. And we've got some indications that there may be ley lines there. So Tobias and Manuel are going in there this coming weekend. They're going to do they're talking about doing some pendulum work, maybe some dowsing, see what comes up. And we'll see. But I think there's something going on. I've been talking to a lot of channelers lately, people who I trust,
Yeah.
There's good channelers and there's not so good channelers. And some of the information I'm getting is pretty profound. I'm starting to believe that there may be actually a indigenous connection to what's going on there. And I do believe these winged beings are ultra-terrestrials. I'm at that point now where I can come out and say that I believe they're ultra-terrestrial, they're interdimensionals, flesh and blood, not any type of ethereal entities, or non-corporeal entities. So yeah, I think we're making some progress. I've got a lady who's very good psychic, who's working with me directly now, and we've been doing some pretty good work lately. So.
Right on.
Hopefully we get some good information.
No, that's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, once you find somebody in there that you can trust on an intuitive level, you really got to run with them. You really do.
Yeah, I was lucky. I fell right into these people, and the way they found me was kind of interesting. But they were basically told to contact me. Now.
Oh, that's nice.
That's what they're telling me, and I kind of believe them because I had no idea who these people were. But we have become close, and we've been working well together, and some of the evidence that we're coming up with has been pretty profound.
Nice.
So hopefully we're going to have some information that we can make public in the not-so-distant future.
Right on. Right on, buddy. That's awesome. That's awesome. We got about just over 1 minute here,
okay.
And then we'll get going once again on everything.
Oh, you got a good crowd tonight.
Yeah, so far so good. Still warming up. That'll we'll add to that here coming up.
Good.
Yeah. If anybody knows how I got that mark right there, a little scrape on my wrist, please let me know. I have no recollection of doing it.
I have a scoop mark on my belly that I got when I was a kid. Never did figure that one out.
Nope.
Still there too, but I never figured how I got that. I know I have been abducted to a point, but that mark, I have no idea how that happened.
Well, now I have something to ask you here. All right. A big thank you to Space Cow, to Double Tim, Black Dragon, and Michael for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show. We're going to kick off the second half hour right now. Thank you to all the veterans who are tuning on in. You always have a safe place here. And all of our regulars, thank you so much. Here we go. half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Strange Days. Filling in for the ailing Butch Witkowski is Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com. And Lon is the leading expert, if I could call him that. I hope he doesn't hit me for that, because nobody's really an expert in this field. But Lon is pretty much the man at the forefront of the Mothman sightings and the new ones. And recently, within the last few weeks, there's been more sightings here, Lon.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy. Well, in particular around O'Hare, we've had a few sightings outside of the city, but the one that has us excited is the July 22nd sighting, where it was originally reported by 3 employees that were leaving the United Cargo building facility about 10:30 at night. Now, this is an area, the western part of the airport, where there's cargo area. And also, for those who don't know, there is a cemetery in that vicinity, the Rest Haven Cemetery. It's been there forever. It's been there, the only remnant of pre-O'Hare International. But for some reason, this cemetery was still there, and that's one of the things we're looking into as to why it still is there. I believe there's a connection between it and what we're experiencing out there, what we're experiencing all around Chicago, quite frankly. But anyway, this part of the airport, which is all cargo companies, we've had a lot of sightings, and I think I looked the other day. I think we've had all together about 22 sightings at O'Hare since October 2019, and a few other sightings outside of O'Hare in Rosemont and some of the other suburbs. Well, anyway, this July 22nd was the big one. What happened was these 3 employees were leaving the job at United. They were walking up the access road to get to the parking lot, and right by the fence on that side of the tarmac, because that's the tarmac starts over there after the fence. This being was standing there, and they described as dark, tall, and had wings like that of a bat and red eyes. And of course, they were freaked out. They didn't know what it was, but it was surrounded by TSA security people. And now when I'm saying security people, I'm talking like 8 of them. So what happened was, originally there was another crew that was near there. It was a FedEx crew. And they were unloading a plane. And one of them saw this thing by the fence by itself, called their supervisor, and in turn, the supervisor called TSA. They all show up there with their flashlights. TSA ain't going to bring anything down. They don't carry anything but flashlights. And they got these flashlights shining on this thing. So these people are watching it. We got the original 3 watching this. And we also have a gentleman who's driving down the access road, who was a United employee, who pulled right up to it and saw this thing getting ready to ascend into the air. And it had just started ready to fly up over the fence. He jumped out of his car, grabbed his phone, was going to take a picture. But a TSA security person literally yelled at him and told him to stop. They were going to arrest him or whatever. Don't do anything. Get back in the car and get the hell out of here. So he didn't take a photograph, unfortunately. Well, We got another interview today of another witness. So at this point, we're talking around 10 to 12 actual witnesses, other than the TSA and supervisors. So, this is an area that's within 100 yards of that cemetery. We've had 6 previous sightings within 100 yards of this cemetery. As well, we had a UFO spotted hovering over the cemetery and a humanoid of some type ascending up into the UFO. We also have had small gray aliens seen in the vicinity of the cemetery. So what's that tell you? Well, something's going on here. I mean, first thing you're thinking, well, O'Hare has a history of UFO activity anyway. So, when I start hearing these stories and these sighting accounts, I'm starting to think that maybe there's some type of extraterrestrial, possibly ultra-terrestrial type being involvement here. And what is going on with this cemetery? So that's what we're really looking into now. We've gotten to the point where we're going to kind of step out of the box a bit and start doing some metaphysical, remote viewing, some other type of divination possibly, and try to get some other information, other evidence as to what these things are. Now, personally, at this point, and I'm just saying this, I'm just putting it out there. And for some of the people who I have been talking to and people I started closely working with, there may be a indigenous or First Nations involvement here with this cemetery. Now, we're just in the preliminaries, but the information we have gotten so far is pretty interesting. So, we're looking into that. We've got people going in there this week. You're going to specifically look at that cemetery and try to do some possible divination work in there, either dowsing, maybe pendulum work and such. These are people in our group, and we're going to kind of step out of the norm and see what we can come up with. But at this point, after all these years, we got to do something because we're not getting anything physical as far as what these things are. We're not getting photographs. But I do have a source at the airport. I have a working source there. This person is an actual supervisor who works for one of the carriers. And they have been telling me that some of the stuff that their people are telling them, and the rumors within the terminal, and some of the other supervisors and the personnel at the powers that be at O'Hare, local government, what they're saying about it. Yeah, they're upset about it. They really are, and they're telling their employees with pain of termination, if they contact us, they're gone. I mean, they're really putting the hammer down on folks. So why they're doing that, I don't know. I don't know why they're even concerned about it. I can understand that they're trying to keep people from coming in there, and because they have been taking people out of. They've been not arresting, but they've been taking people who have been breaking into the airport, flying drones around the airport. That's been a big problem lately. And of course, that's a federal offense doing that. So, I mean, these stupid people want to go out there and do that. All the power to them. I'm not suggesting they do that, but they've been having problems. Now, I don't know if the motive is to stop that or if there's something else, but I plan to look into it and try to get some answers.
No kidding. Are there any patterns that you have been able to find with this Mothman sightings, whether it's time of year, time of day, areas where it's being spotted?
Now, the first year I thought, well, the weather's going to get cold. These things are going to stop. And quite frankly, it did. It kind of waned off for a while, but ever since the winter of 2017 into 2018, I'd say starting in February and March, the weather's still cold. There's still snow on the ground. These sightings are picking up again. And it's been pretty steady since then. So I don't think the weather has anything to do with it. I don't know if there are specific hot spots because of possible ley line activity. I think there are intersecting ley lines in this cemetery that, when you got a ley line, it's just not local. This thing extends out and goes for maybe hundreds of miles. So I don't know if there's a ley line connection there with areas outside the airport. We've had a lot of sightings. We had a sighting at the Wisconsin State Fair just 2 weeks ago of a similar creature that showed up late at night as a Christian rock band had just got done finishing a concert. And the crew was on the stage breaking down the equipment. And two of the hired hands that were hired by the fair to clean up spotted this thing literally staring at the people up on the stage. And they noticed it, and the thing looked at them with these red eyes, pulled its wings unflapped, and it just literally took off. So, of course, when I got that report and I posted it, the Milwaukee papers got a hold of it, and they're calling it a demon. So, it's Mothman. They started calling this. When we first started getting these sightings in Chicago, I was calling it the Chicago Phantom. But, that doesn't sell papers, and that doesn't get much interest out of folks, so they just called it a Mothman. Everybody wanted to connect it with, Point Pleasant and Kiel and the whole bunch, and, that kind of got the name. So, unfortunately, I had to kind of go with that, or people would be confused as to what I was talking about. But, of course, we've always had people say, these are demons or some other type of being, benevolent being, and in the Milwaukee paper, they put it out there that there was a demon seen.
You mentioned that this latest round of sightings are around a cemetery. Do you believe there might be something to do with First Nations there? I'm just curious what leads you down that path. What clues do you have?
Well, I have been talking to some channelers who I believe are very credible, some psychic mediums. Look, I tell you, I'm not grasping at straws. I'm just trying to get some answers. And some of the evidence, the written evidence, and some of the older evidence that they have presented to me kind of seems to be something that there's something connected with either some type of deity or some type of spirit or energy that these, particularly Hopi Indians, which are out in the West, but some of what they have practiced. Now, for those who don't know, and I tell you, I just learned this recently, the Chicago area has had, over the past 300 years, and even maybe a little longer, have had over 22 different tribes inhabit the area. Didn't know that. But there is a federation of 3 specific tribes in the Chicago area. They have an actual federation. So, and I'm not going to name who they are because they're not really that well known, but they do represent the tribes. And I think it's going to take us to make a presentation to them somehow to, ask them what they know. So maybe we can get some other information about what may be going on. So, but at this point, I'm looking for answers.
I can see that. And those answers are tough to come by when you don't know when it's going to happen, and you're always having to rely on secondhand information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Then that's it. When you just have witnesses, that's fine. That's great. But that isn't going to get you anywhere, especially since these sightings are very quick. We're not getting any photographic evidence. We're not getting any physical evidence. But I do believe at this point right now that we are dealing with some type of ultra-terrestrial. I think they are ultra-terrestrials. Say extraterrestrial, I don't know if that's what you want to call it. but I think they're ultra terrestrial, and I think they are coming from another dimension, a dimension that's accessible from our Earth plane, and a linear type of dimension, possibly. Now, this is kind of new, but possibly underground. Now, if it's underground, there's got to be some type of portal, vortex, or something that these things have got to come through. But I have said all along, I think these are definitely some type of supernatural being of some type. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I'd like to be able to come on here and just tell you what I know it is or what I really think it is, but I just can't do that at this point. But I want to make everybody assured them that we are working on it. I mean, the whole team's working on this, and when we get answers, we're gonna put it out there.
How many sightings in 2021 alone?
I'd say over 20.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And
it's been pretty steady.
How many of those come from what you would call credible people that have no skin in the game, that really are mortified by what they saw?
All of them. The reason I say all of them, if it's not a credible sighting, we won't even talk about it. We'll keep a record of it, but it won't be part of our actual database. When you go to the Families of Monsters and you click on the map link, where an interactive map of these sightings, those sightings are sightings we believe are credible sightings. Anything else that that we don't deem as credible isn't up there. And we've got right now 129 credible sightings.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a sighting credible for you?
Well, first of all, the witness, it starts with the witness.
Yes.
What they tell us, how forthright they are, how they do not embellish on what they originally tell you, how quickly they contact you. Of course, we get people who have been afraid to come forward and talk about something that happened a couple of years ago, and that's understandable. But especially those witnesses who are quick to get a hold of us and contact us, and that have no idea that this phenomena has been going on. I would say that 95% of the reports that we get are from folks who have no idea about a Chicago Mothman or winged beings in the Chicago area. Now, is that because they have an ability to see these things as opposed to everybody else or other folks, or are they being picked out by these beings themselves? That's something else we're working on. The way some of these people see these things, some people in crowds, and they're the only ones seeing it. That has happened on occasion. So, it's just another, just another bit of information that we take in consideration. But, we usually have people, we usually follow up with another investigator on our team. Now, when this first started in 2017, like I said, I had Rosemary Ellen Guiley working with me. So I'd be getting the reports, and then I'd send everything to her for her to call them and talk to them. She was actually putting together a presentation for the Mothman Festival in 2017, and that's where all this started and was presented at originally. And that's where it started started picking up in September 2017 because of her presentation. And that's where, that's how things that's how the ball got rolling, quite frankly.
The way the ball gets rolling with these subjects, in those 22 sightings that have happened in 2021, are they mainly in a certain area? Is there any type of similarities that you have drawn between those 22 sightings?
Well, those sightings in particular have been around the airport. I think we've had 4 sightings not in the vicinity of the airport. All the others have been. Now, why that is? Well, there's got to be a reason why. I mean, And that's why I believe this western part of the airport, particularly around the cemetery, has something to do with it.
Do you think there's like an energy vortex or something around that cemetery?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm starting to believe that more and more as time has gone on. I kind of discounted that to a degree early on, especially when we had sightings all around the city. Now, there were neighborhoods where there were a lot of sightings, in particular the area of what people call, Little Village, which is a high Hispanic area. And we had 11 sightings in that area in about a year and a half period. Very similar sightings, all within blocks of each other. But the population and the people who were calling these in to us were calling them demons. They thought that these were some type of demons that were showing up. We started looking into a cult, maybe a cult connection, maybe some type of, specifically Santeria or some type of summoning. I don't know. When you get into Hispanic culture and the other beliefs within that community, you can get into a whole big can of worms with that. But, that's one thing we were looking at. But then the sightings stopped there. Then they started going into other places. But now it's the airport.
Just doesn't make sense. What, with under 2 minutes to go here, what makes Chicago O'Hare such a interesting place for these sightings to happen?
Well, I wish I knew. I really wish I knew. I just think, Chicago's had a long history of a lot of weird things. And it's got a lot of paranormal activity throughout the city. It's got a lot of UFO activity throughout the city. The airport itself has had a lot of paranormal activity that just hasn't gotten out to the mainstream. There have been some really crazy sightings in that terminal in particular. I'm talking ghosts and other beings and such, a lot of UFOs. Of course, you remember 2006 with the that large disc that popped through the clouds there. It was well known. Also, they had a plane come in. They had the nose of the plane bashed in from hitting something. They don't even know what that was all about.
Was that the one with the NBA team on it?
Yeah. I mean, just destroyed the front of that plane. I mean, there was no goose or anything or crane or cairn that could have done that much damage.
I remember that because the pilots weren't recording anything on their radar and had no sighting. It just all of a sudden it just went bang.
Yeah.
That was
crazy. There's been no answers to that. I mean, I don't know. Did one of these things hit that thing? I don't know. We've had people suggest that. I don't know if that is the case or not. But, I don't really know what altitude it happened at. All I know is they were on their way in, to land. So.
It was still high. It was well over 20,000 feet at that point.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Lon, did it hit a UFO? I don't know.
Who knows?
Maybe it did.
Lon, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. And, of course, we got lots of monsters to talk about with you. And in hour number 2, we will get to some audience questions as well as we continue on with Strange Days here on Spaced Out Radio from phantomsandmonsters.com. Lon Strickler is filling in for the ailing Butch Witkowski tonight. Yes, we're having a good show. Monster Talk continues on Spaced Out Radio's hour number 2. Coming up next. All right, we're clear, boss.
Okay.
Another good one. Good times, man. Love these stories.
Yeah, it's gotten interesting. It really has. I hate when we get a lull. We're just sitting there grasping for stories. But the thing I talked to you about with the Vancouver Island thing up on the north part of the camp, I haven't heard anything back. I don't know when they're going out, but I have been assured that they're going out before it gets too cold out. So,
well, I can tell you this. Do you know who Alex Mistretta is?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know anything on that.
Once everything kind of clears up and it's easy to get back across the border, every now and again, he's actually coming up here, and we're actually going to be going to Vancouver Island and he's invited me along for a trek. So we'll tie it into what you're doing. Oh, you went mute there on me.
Damn silencer, give me a fit tonight.
That's all right. That's all right.
Oh, boy.
Hi, gorgeous Judy Wheeler. Judy Wheeler, how are you? Good to see you. See where the audience wants to take this one.
Okay.
My goodness, I'm only 4 weeks away from winter tires. It's terrible.
Oh, Christ, don't even tell me about winter.
God, I can't even. Are winter tires mandatory there?
In this state it is.
Yeah.
Well, if we have radios, they're okay, But everybody has radios now, so I don't think there's much difference, They don't require actual snow tires, just radios. But they're only as good as, they're only that so good for certain depths.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, we used to put the chains on or get these cinder blocks and put them in the back when we had rear-wheel drive. And, front-wheel drive was a godsend.
Up here, snow tires are mandatory from October 1st to April 1st.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I can see that.
It's just smart. It really is. It's just smart.
How are they with the roads up there? Do they take care of the roads pretty well during snow?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's the first couple of snowfalls, it takes them a little bit and to finally get going, and then after that, once they've kind of got their pace, they keep going.
Pennsylvania isn't shit. I mean, they're terrible. PennDOT is the worst. They'll run one scraper in there and that's it. And after that, you're on your own. Maryland, on the other hand, is fantastic. They really keep up with the highways and the roads and stuff in Maryland. But geez, Pennsylvania.
I'd hate to live in Saskatchewan because it snows there like 362 days a year.
Yeah, I was in Regina. My God, it was oh my God, when was that? That was had back in the 70s. I was never so damn cold and never seen so much snow in my life when I was up there. I was up there for a week. I didn't think I'd get out of it, to be honest with you.
Oh man, it happens. God, it only hurts after minus 20 Celsius. Anything before that, it's all good, man. But once it hits that minus 20 Celsius, then it starts to get very, very sore. Very sore. Give me 2 seconds here because we're going to come back in like 20. Big thank you to Space Cow, to Double Tim, to Black Dragon, and Michael for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much for everything you guys do. Thank you to all the amazing veterans who are listening to this show. You always have a clean and free home here. And, of course, to all our regulars, here we go with hour number 2.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. What you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Judogi. Judogi is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with Strange Days. However, Butch Witkowski's on the sideline. He's on the injured reserve right now after some dental surgery. He's going to be okay. He'll be back next month. But filling in is Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com. And Lon, we got audience questions starting to come in for you here, boss. So we're going to get right to it. We'll start off with Tony D from the Wales in the United Kingdom. And he is asking, what is the meaning of the alphabet agency that was surrounding the being, please?
Oh, the TSA.
The Transportation Safety?
Yeah, Transportation Safety Administration. They are an outshoot of Homeland Security, and after 9/11, they're the folks that have been responsible for checking folks out who are coming on and off, well, actually on planes. So it's kind of a thankless job, but then again, they're ahead of also security on the perimeters of these airports as well. So yep. That is part of Homeland Security.
Very cool. Very cool. So for you, I know your love is this whole Mothman thing.
Mm.
And I'm curious, what else kind of tickles your fancy? Is it going back to the roots of ghost hunting, or is it Bigfoot? Is it what we're seeing with all of these aliens now kind of butting their way into everything?
Well, I believe a lot of this phenomena is connected somehow. The upright canines Dogman phenomena is pretty interesting. Butch and I have been working on that here in Pennsylvania for a while. We did get some pretty harrowing reports over the years, but it's kind of a tradition here. This is something that's been going on in Pennsylvania for a long time. Pennsylvania literally has 47%. Is 49% forested yet. So there's a lot of wilderness out there. And, people see a lot of strange things in this state. And these upright canines and these quadruped dogmen are also part of that. So, it's an interesting phenomena. We really don't know what it is. But, when you start talking about Bigfoot and other cryptids, I think a lot of this stuff is connected possibly to altered terrestrials, extraterrestrials as well. So, I like that. Plus, we've had another phenomena that's kind of raised its ugly head in the past couple of years, which are the pale humanoids. And people call them crawlers. White walkers, whatever you want to call them. You know, some people use the term rake. Even people have called them wendigos, but they're not that. That rake thing is just a meme. That's the creepypasta definition of these things. But people are seeing them, and they're seeing them worldwide, actually. So that's my next project as far as my next book. I've been working on that. I'm going to present this pale humanoid phenomena, and that's what I'm kind of concentrating on. But when I say concentrating, you know how that is. That's just one more thing I'm looking into. It's just part of the whole scheme of things. And I'm always working on hauntings and attachments and such with individuals. I get a lot of calls for help.
I got to ask you, what's the freakiest paranormal story or paranormal case you've ever had to deal with?
Okay, well, that's pretty easy. I was working with a paranormal team in Wales, and I was literally doing this remotely. I was doing it through a laptop and such, but there was a particular case in a town called Neath, which is in southeast Wales. There was a particular tavern there or bar called PJ's Pub or whatever it was. I think it was PJ's. Well, we got a call from the two owners of this place. Actually, one guy lived upstairs, and he was saying he was coming down in the morning, and he kept finding the salt and pepper shakers and the sugar shakers all opened up and dumped on the bar and the tables. So he didn't know what was going on. And also, and the candles were lit. He's starting to wonder, well, this might be a little dangerous. Something's out there lighting these candles. So they called us in. We started working the case. And look, it took a long time. We worked on this case for weeks and weeks and weeks. And found a lot of strange things. We literally bumped into 3 levels of historic phenomena, whether it be Cistercian monks from the Norman period, the Roundheads from the First English Civil War, up into just around World War II. We were running into phenomena, especially in the basement of this place. Every time we went down there, something was showing up, and it was weird. Well, anyway, we were up in the dining room proper one evening, and the local folks who were on the team were doing EVP sessions. And one night, and I'm on the computer, so I'm watching all of this as it's going on. And they're up there taking this one night, they were doing these EVPs. And a friend and their woman and husband, who were friends of the chief investigators of the team, were visiting from London. So they thought it'd be a kick to hang on and go along with them that night as they did their investigation. Now, this person who I worked with was a very good psychic. And she literally is the person who taught me how to remote view, because she had worked for MI6 years previous to that. So she had been involved in some big cases with British government. So anyway, they're getting these EVPs. They're trying to talk to these entities. They're not yelling and screaming at them, but So this couple who came were sitting at a table there, and they were watching what they were doing. Well, the guy. His name was Gary. So remember the name Gary. So, we did this EVP session for about an hour and a half, and there wasn't a whole lot going on. We weren't sensing or seeing much. So we decided, we're going to wrap it up for the night. So it's about 2-3 o'clock in the morning in Wales. So it was about 10 o'clock here in the U.S., here on the East Coast of the United States. So I guess they lived about a half an hour from Neath. They lived up near Carmarthen. And they drove back, and, I'm in bed, about 1 o'clock in the morning. And this investigator gives me a call. Lon, you got to listen to this. I don't know what the hell to do. I want you to tell me what we got to do with this. And I'm thinking, what the hell is she talking about? So she has this recording from the EVP. She said, I'm going to send it to you, but I want you to listen to it over the phone. So she played it over the phone, and I could barely hear what was being said. So I told her, look, I'll go ahead and take the file and listen to it. So when I got the file and downloaded it, what came up was like an old hag voice, and it said, Gary, you're dead now.
Oh, my.
Plain as day. I still got the recording. I had to send it to you someday. And I played it again. I thought, what the hell is this? And so I got back on the horn with her, and I told her what I thought I heard, and she said, yeah. She said, what am I supposed to tell them? I said, don't tell them a damn thing. Don't tell them anything. These entities like to play games and stuff and tell, a whole bunch of crap. You know that. And okay, well, we won't say anything. Well, these friends of hers are back in London at their home. And about a week later, Gary is selling his car. So these teenagers come up to the house and ask Gary to show them the car. He went out front with them, and they beat Gary to death.
Oh, my goodness.
So she's on the horn with me that evening. Lon, Gary's dead. Okay. What am I supposed to say? Should I tell her what I said, don't you ever tell her what we heard on there. And we didn't. I mean, I know she didn't. I know she didn't say anything. That was probably the freakiest thing I've ever encountered. And that's one of the few things that really stick with me. I'd have to say that's the worst one.
That just hits home. Holy cow.
Yeah. I had an abduction case, and it's in my book, Alien Disclosure. It's right in the beginning of the book, where this woman and her mother, they lived together in eastern Washington, right by about a mile away from the Idaho border. So what happened was, for a while, they were noticing these white and red orbs or craft, hovering above the Coeur d'Alene Mountains, which were in the distance in Idaho. So they were a bit freaked out by it. The girl's name was Mandy. She was actually a school teacher, and she was living with her elderly mother, who was she was actually a retired state worker. So one evening after they had a late dinner, they told me that they had been looking out the window. They heard these popping sounds, didn't know what was going on. And as they looked out the window, they saw these red and white orbs hitting each other. And each time they would hit, they'd make a loud popping sound. And there were thousands of them out there. So Mandy goes outside on the porch, and she's standing there watching him. Then she's getting a little freaked out. So she runs back in the house, runs to the front of the house, looks out the front window, and the whole field across the road and the front yard is just loaded with these orbs. So that night, they were up getting ready for bed, and all of a sudden, all the power goes off, and they start hearing footsteps on the roof up in the attic, and they don't know what the hell's going on. So of course they're huddled together, scared to death, not knowing what's going on. So they that happened for about an hour, but then the power all came back right away. So her mother was going to call the police, but like, what are you going to tell the police? We saw orbs, and we had all these noises up in the attic and stuff. All the power went off and came back. Well, anyway, this stuff kept going on. This kept happening. I mean, she literally told me that it was like she was living in hell, because every night it seemed to be something going on. So they got a hold of an investigator up in Spokane, Washington, who recommended they call me because they knew my work with David Eckhart, and I had just started working with him, and they were familiar with what I was doing. So they called me this night, this couple nights later, about 2 weeks after all this started. And they told me what was going on. And, we talked about 3 hours. And I had this feeling something wasn't right here. I literally thought that this was leading up to an abduction or something worse. And I just didn't like the feel. But I didn't tell them anything. I said, well, do me a favor. It's getting late. Why don't you contact me tomorrow night? But I want you to keep a journal. I want you to write down everything that happens and to, tell me about it as we talk. So, yeah, we'll call you tomorrow night. Okay. So I'm waiting for the phone call and I never get it. So about 4 days later on a Sunday, Mandy's mother calls me and she says, Lon, I'm sorry I didn't call you, but there's been so much going on around here. I couldn't come around to calling you. So I said, what's going on? She said, Mandy's gone. I said, what do you mean Mandy's gone? Well, she disappeared. Her car's here. All her clothes and everything are here. She said, that night after we had talked to you, I went up to bed and Mandy was in her room. I could see the light underneath the door. And I knocked on the door and nobody answered. And she said, I opened the door up and the lights all went out. And she was calling out her name. She said she was freaking out, running all over the place with a flashlight, trying to find Mandy. Couldn't find her. Went outside, nothing for over an hour. So she calls the state police. Washington State Police show up and they take a report. And of course, the first thing they're thinking is she ran off with some guy or just took off, but her car was still there. All her clothes, her luggage, and everything were there. She just vanished. And that was 10 years ago. And I check up on this case every so often, and she has not shown up.
What do you think happened to her?
I think she was abducted. I literally think she was abducted. And, I felt bad about that for a long time because I never warned her about what I thought. So, I didn't want to just come right out and say, look, I think you might be heading toward an abduction that you need to do. But what I couldn't really tell her how to avoid that, but no, I think she was abducted.
Yeah, she definitely had aliens.
Yeah, there was something going on there, and I believe it was non-terrestrials of some type. But she never mentioned they saw anything. But the fact that these orbs are out there and all this crazy activity, and the lights would come on and off, and this and that, I just had a really bad feeling. I was hoping they'd call the next night, and we could probably get down to what this all is, and I could tell her, look, you may have aliens visiting you. You may have something visiting you. Maybe you've got some type of spirit activity. I don't know. But, at that time, I really didn't know what was going on. But after I found out that she was gone, and after I actually did a remote view with a couple individuals who I've worked with in the past, our deduction at the end of this thing was that she was abducted.
Goodness. That is just creepy.
Yeah.
That is just creepy. And no clues whatsoever.
Nothing. No, she's still listed as missing. And there's never been any evidence of her anywhere else. Her mother has hired investigator upon investigator to look for her, and she's never found anything. But all her credentials, license, everything, I do know after 7 years, her mother was able to have her declared dead, basically, because of the insurance and everything. Then her mother did die not long after that.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. So, she goes to her grave not knowing what happened to her daughter. And, she had asked me several times, well, what do you think happened to her? And I told her, I said, look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think she may have actually been abducted, So, I that's all I can tell you.
I mean, that's a difficult conversation to have.
Sure it is. Yeah, sure it is. And this is the kind of thing that people who get involved with this type of work have better get ready for it and be aware of it. Because look, I have been psychically attacked on numerous occasions. I had something happen to me just last week. This fine lady, very good psychic intuitive, who I've been working with. I literally woke up one morning after we had done some work the night before with entities, and I had a golf-sized knot on my lower shin. I don't know where the hell it came from. It had a hard knot on my shin. And the only thing I could attribute it to was an actual psychic attack. Something got pissed off at me and just caused it. And that does happen. I've had that happen during remote views on at least 2 occasions. I had one time where I was involved in the middle of an actual remote view, and this entity, he was a real bastard. I mean, this thing had been sexually assaulting their daughter. Her daughter who was still living. I mean, this guy was sexually assaulting her in his death state, and I literally had a laceration that started from the top of my chest down to my belly button, like it took, not like a scratch, like something took the edge of a knife and just ran it down there. Bleeding. I didn't have to get stitches, but I put butterflies on it. I had that happen, and then another time I had literally had bruised ribs from a psychic attack. I mean, to the point where I could hardly breathe for a couple of days. So it does happen. It does happen. So, the paranormal is not fun and games. I mean, some people think, we can go out and do this. There's many times I have worked on cases where people get an attachment, and the attachment is a result of somebody thinking they can be a paranormal investigator and go out there in the graveyard and start hooting and hollering and start trouble. And something bad is always out in the graveyard, and it's going to latch on to you. Many cases with so-called paranormal investigators, that people think they're paranormal investigators, that get a really nasty attachment. Happens a lot.
How can you prevent it? How do you combat that?
I try to teach people on how to protect themselves. And I have told folks that when you do this, there are 2 things that you've got to do, that you've got to try to do, is either use the protection of golden light or white light to surround your whole body. You got to actually imagine, you got to use a sense of like your third eye, and just take all this white light and surround you. I am able to project my aura. In other words, I'm able to extend my aura out past my body. And I've been using that technique for years. There are occasions when I will see folks or see somebody, I can sense an aura around them. But I'm able to extend my aura.
Wow.
A lot of people don't buy into that. But look, I use talisman. I use all kinds of different sigils and crystals and such that I carry with me. So,
Lon, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We're going to continue with audience questions and more high strangeness from Lon Strickler on Strange Days. His website is phantomsandmonsters.com. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio as we continue after this. All right, we're clear.
Okay. I figured I'd tell you everything.
Oh, scaring the shit out of me tonight. Love it.
Yeah, well, it does happen. I mean, a lot of people think it's bullshit. That's when, you had your little 15 minutes of talk tonight. You were talking about the assholes and the paranormal and the skeptics that just want to bitch and moan and argue with you. these people have no concept of what is really out there. They really don't. And they just like to cause trouble or argue. That's what they do. If I got into a room with them and had a talk with them and told them some of the crap I've been involved with, I think they'd come out with a different perspective.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Just 1 second. I got to send this off here.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Oh, dude, that's just insane hearing that story, man. Just insane. That literally sent shivers up my spine.
Yeah, and I tell folks all the time, look, you're going to do this type of stuff. Look, you may be an intuitive. You want to learn how to remote view. You want to learn how to do this and that. You want to help people. Fine. You want to help people. But you better be prepared for the circumstances that follow that, because a lot of times you're going to run into some shit you don't know how to handle.
Oh, yeah.
There have been times, after that Mandy case, I literally almost stopped doing all this. That bothered me so bad that I didn't warn them in some degree, though there's not really much I could have done. But it did. It bothered me for a long time.
Did they ever catch who killed Gary?
I don't know. That's a good question. I really don't know. There were just a couple of hoodlums that just beat the shit out of him, and they beat the hell out of him bad.
Oh.
Didn't take the car. Never took the car. From what I understood was they were looking under the hood, and he was leaning over it, and they dropped the hood on his head.
Classy.
So.
Classy. Got a bunch.
They talk about the crime not being near as bad as in the United States or in London, but man, you hear about these hoodlum beatings and shit all the time over there.
Yeah, it's all because of soccer, my friend. if there was real sports over there, that shit doesn't happen.
They are some crazy fucks over there, aren't they?
Yeah, that soccer promotes that type of ignorant violence. That's why I'm allergic to it. Can't stand the crap.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to watch a good football game once in a while, too. I mean, English football, but...
Not me, man. Not me. I will literally punish my child. I don't spank my child, but I will give him the look, and I will say, do you want to go over to the soccer field? Because remember, the kids who are there, their parents don't love them.
Give them skates and a hockey stick, and you'll be happy.
Oh, dude, we're all ready. We're getting ready here for hockey season.
Yeah, me too. I enjoy watching hockey.
Goddamn soccer crap.
I used to play when I was younger, but I enjoy hockey.
Oh yeah, hockey's not that good anymore, to be honest with you.
No, it's not. I mean,
the NHL has absolutely killed hockey.
Yeah. Well, look at NFL football. They had just dumbed it down so much to where you got to be afraid to even hit anybody anymore.
Oh God! Don't even get me started. I will rant for hours. As I was saying to my listeners the other night, and you're an old hockey guy, so you'll understand this. Like up here in Canada, it's all about, let's have fun. Let's let the kids have fun. You know what? Hockey's not fun. Hockey is hard. What makes it fun is teaching the kids to accomplish something that they never thought they would accomplish, and seeing the smiles on their face that they know they can do that. And we've taken a great sport and we've completely pussified it, and it's disgusting. Hold on 1 second, 5 seconds.
Sure.
Now I'm angry. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Strange Days. Filling in for the ailing Butch Witkowski is Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com. Lon, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
All right, let's get to some audience questions here because we got a few of them to burn through. B. Hoff is asking, Lon, have you had any recent reports of dinosaurs or large reptoids?
Honestly, not offhand. We really haven't. There was a time when I was getting a lot of those those reptilian reports. But quite honest with you, I haven't been getting anything of substance. Sorry about that, but that's just the truth. I mean, I just really have not gotten any.
That's too bad. I like these mini Tyrannosaurus Rex or Raptors.
I love those things. Yeah.
Do you buy that? Do you buy that?
I think something's going on, especially in specific areas. Down in South Texas, between San Antonio and Laredo and that area down there, even up into the hill country for a bit. We were getting some really crazy mini Tyrannosaurus Rex sightings. There were certain towns that people were actually seeing. Hubblesville was one. Was it Hubbardsville or Hubbardstown? Was one in particular. I had talked to Ken Gerhardt about that, and he kind of laughs and says, "Man, you wouldn't even dream of some of the crap people are seeing around here." He lives down in San Antonio.
Yeah.
He said, we're getting reports of all kinds of crazy stuff. So
that's just nuts.
I've had reports as well.
That is just nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see some of these dinosaurs, man. These mini dinosaurs. Oh.
Well, when people contact me about that, the first thing I ask them is, "Are you sure you're not seeing a roadrunner out there?" "No, it's not a roadrunner. It's bigger than a roadrunner. You got roadrunners with teeth." "Nah, it's not a roadrunner." "Okay, well, if you say so."
All right, Greg is asking, have you had any reports of shadow dogs near lakes in Ohio?
Shadow dogs? No, I don't think I have. That's a new one. I'd like to know a little more about that if they have heard anything, because offhand, I can't think of that, and I can't think of anything like that. Ohio is well known for a lot of crazy things, and but it's mostly the Bigfoot and maybe upright canines. But as far as shadow dogs, no. I don't know.
Earlier this year, I had 4 instances where 3 times I was looking down from my patio for my black German Shepherd and saw, I swear to God, I saw him. And it ended up being a shadow dog. And then the 4th time was I brought my dogs inside, and I actually heard the shadow dog bonk the back outside of my door and then scratch at the door to come in.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Freaked me
right out. Then again, where you live at, that doesn't surprise me.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never seen a shadow dog. Like, this shadow being was a twin to I have a black purebred German Shepherd. Mm-hmm. A twin to it. Twin. Mm-hmm. Walked the same, all the actions were the same as the dog. It's incredible. Incredible.
Well, you heard of mimics, so maybe this was some type of being that was mimicking, the dog. I don't know.
No idea. Well, let's see here. Boss is saying, what scares me is the thought of abducted humans trapped on some alien ship, forgotten.
I have never run across that, though. You see it in the movies occasionally. I don't know. That would be bad, I guess. But I quite frankly, if they're going to be trapped on an alien ship, you're not going to hear anything about it anyway because they're going to be probably dead or somewhere else. But that would be a scary scenario. I have been involved with David Eckhart and some of the stuff he went through for those many years he was going through abductions, and he literally described experimentation of humans by these reptilian beings where they were just using them, just literally cutting them up and using them for whatever. He was privy to a lot of that stuff. It may sound fantastical. It may sound like it's all craziness, but yeah, from what I can tell, I believe him. I really do. I mean, he was given some type of carte blanche or something to go in there into I don't know if it was a craft or it was some type of facility. I believe it was mostly facility, possibly an underground. And he saw how they exterminated humans into some type of furnace-like device. And I mean, you talk about all these folks, all these people and kids that are gone, just disappear and never show up. And then you hear something like that, you think, well, maybe there's a reason why they're not showing back up. Just like Mandy, who's to say she wasn't taken and used for whatever. So, yeah, it's a scary scenario. It really is.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. It really is freaky. Don is asking, do you believe in tulpas?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I believe thought forms and tulpas are a real thing. There have actually been some experiments by groups who have used this whole thought form manifestation in groups and have been able to literally manifest some type of entity. For people that have heard the term poltergeist, well, a real poltergeist is basically a tulpa or a thought form. It's a human manifested being that is not a spirit. It's something that's manifested unconsciously or subconsciously by a human host. And, when you get these poltergeist cases, and I've had a few, you just don't go in there to get rid of the damn thing. I mean, this is something that the person, the host, has to literally do for themselves. And they gradually have to calm things, and it's usually a result of dysfunction or illness in the family or something going on that's causing bad energy. And you've got to start making things more positive in your life. And when these tulpas or these poltergeists or whatever they are have less energy to feed off of, less negative energy to feed off of, they can't survive. They're gonna go to someplace else. They're just gonna literally pack up and go somewhere else.
Do you think that these manifestations that we call tulpas are just figments of the darkest part of our imaginations?
Could be. Yeah, it could be. The human mind can do some pretty dark things. I think if the person is so inclined to do that, if there's some type of activity around them that just causes them to subconsciously think this stuff up, who's to say they can't manifest something that bad or something worse? I truly believe that. Yeah, I do.
All right, let's move on. Tony in the UK. Lon, have you ever remote viewed a rake? Is it possible that the rake is an emaciated dogman?
Well, the rake, if you're referring to a pale humanoid or something, because the rake, as far as I'm concerned, is the same thing as a pale humanoid. The rake is kind of the creepy pasta name for this thing. It's a meme, just like the Slender Man, in my opinion. But these pale humanoids, either crawlers or something that even walks upright. I have not done any remote view because, first of all, I wouldn't attempt that remote view on my own. That would be something where I would need several remote viewers, set up a protocol, use coordinated remote viewing, have a monitor, and just go through the steps one by one by one. And in order to determine what these things really are, you need that. You need a consensus from other remote viewers. If somebody tells you they can remote view by themselves and determine something like that, say people remote view Roswell or some incident, that's not going to happen. They may think they're doing it, but they're not.
All right, Corey is asking, are there any reports of dogmen appearing in bedrooms in the middle of the nights at the foots of beds?
Yeah, there have been manifestations of these what people call dogmen or upright canines. Yeah, and just like every other cryptid out there, I believe there's a supernatural aspect to it, and I think they can manifest if they're inclined to do so. I think Bigfoot have the ability to cloak themselves. I think these canines, upright canines, have the ability to cloak themselves too. There's a phenomenon that's been happening more and more. It's called the Glimmer Man Phenomena, and basically what it is, and if you've seen the Predator movies and that kind of glassine-looking thing where the Predator alien kind of camouflages itself, well, there have been instances of that same type of effect. That may very well be these Bigfoot or some type of other cryptid that is camouflaging itself. I literally have photographs of these things, and it looks just like the Predator movies. And the person who wrote the Predator movies, did they have an experience like that at some point where they wrote that in? Hell no, I don't know. But Bruce Maccabee, he and his wife have both seen this, and they've seen it in their property where these things. And he believes it's Bigfoot, where they literally camouflage themselves. So as far as being able to move into a home and manifest, absolutely, I think that's very possible.
Let's move on here. Amy is asking, do we invite this stuff in because we keep talking about it?
I guess that's a matter of opinion. I think if you have the ability to lower the energy when you get involved with this type of thing, when you talk about it, just like when I write about it and such, there's always a person who will sit there, read it, and think about it to the point where they may able to manifest that. That's what a tulpa would be, subconsciously. Not they wouldn't do it consciously, but as far as beings or some type of spirit energy, yeah, it's possible. I guess it is possible, but I just rarely see anything like that.
All right, Stacy is asking, like the black dog story of them in cemeteries and near graves, is this the kind of ghost dogs we're talking about?
I don't know. There have been a lot of reports of dogmen and Bigfoot that hang around cemeteries. I've been hearing that for decades now. Why that happens, I don't know, but they're attracted to it for some reason. Is it the actual spirit energy around there that attracts them? That's been one theory. Talk about black dogs. If this is a phenomena, who's to say that they wouldn't be attracted to the energy around there as well? These cemeteries are a strange place. I mean, of course, there's going to be a buildup. There's going to be a buildup of energy, human energy, from what has been buried there. A lot of times, these bodies and the life force that comes from these bodies have issues with separating. And I've seen that, where I have literally picked up energy at funerals where they're placing a body into the ground, and you know that person standing beside you on the other side of you. I've realized that. I've had people tell me the same thing. You know, they know the person who died is standing there watching this. And do they continue to hang around there? I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of them are confused. They don't even know they're dead. They don't understand why all their friends and relatives are standing around here watching this box go in the ground. And, you know, why am I standing here? So who knows? I mean, who knows? You know, when you go into a situation when you're clearing an energy, clearing a spirit, an earthbound spirit, you run into a lot of these problems where, you know, when you contact them, you connect with them, and they don't even know why they're in that state. Because some of them don't even realize they're dead. But there are energies that are conscious enough to know that they are dead, but they don't want to leave for a specific reason because they feel like they have unfinished business, or they just simply want to get people's attention. So
that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Love this question from Greg. Do you ever get cryptid sightings from the Amish community?
I had one real interesting one. This happened many years ago. It's about a dozen years ago. But I got it from a milk delivery guy. Well, this guy used to go to the Amish farms and literally pick up the milk on the farms and take it, you know, to be processed. This was around Strasburg, Pennsylvania, which is the southern part of Lancaster County. And this guy who drove the milk truck was talking to one of the old Amish guy, told him this story about this wild man wearing pants that was out in the field. And the thing he described was a Bigfoot, basically a Bigfoot. He called it a wild man. Well, anyway, this guy was kind of scared to talk about it. He didn't know what was going on. He, you know, because of his religion, his Amish background, you know, they have no concept of this kind of stuff. They, you know, even ghosts, you know, I've got Amish relatives, I've got Mennonite relatives, so I grew up in that, you know, in that type of thing. And they just really, they don't even recognize it. Even though there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on in the Amish world, but that has to do with folk healing and then other things. But this guy told this milk carrier that he was that this wild man was on his property, and that he had walked out of the field, and that his son had followed him, and they wanted to get rid of him quickly because they were scared of him. So they chased him towards the barn, and as he was running towards the barn, this thing vanished in front of their eyes. So that really flipped his lid. He didn't know what to think about that. But I was told the story. I contacted this gentleman, and when we got to the point where this thing was about to disappear, he stopped. He said, "I can't talk about this anymore." So, yeah, that's probably the only one. Now, you know, in Amish country, they have there's a legend about, and it's called they're basically these little Bigfoot that throw apples at people and stuff. And, you know, they got to, you know, there's talk about it. I don't know how true it is. You know, they made a festival out of this in areas around Lancaster County by the river, the Albatwitch. This is what they call it. So, you know, that's something else you hear about occasionally, but it's not necessarily an Amish thing, but it's Amish country.
You do not hear a lot of religious sects and communities talking about paranormal outbursts like that.
No, you don't. But, and I will say this, and look, I don't want anybody getting pissed at me for saying this, but there is a lot of evil in some of these Amish communities. It's simple. As simple as that. The occult is prevalent. There's a thing called powwowing where it's they use what they call Well, it's basically a witch individual who's a faith healer. It's almost like Appalachian folk magic, but it's in not necessarily the Amish community, but it's in the High German community, the Pennsylvania Dutch community. Pennsylvania Dutch and Amish are different. For people who don't know that, but it's prevalent. It's still prevalent. It's actually illegal in the state of Pennsylvania to practice it, but you're not going to stop it. It's tradition. But there have been murders associated with this in the past. There have been people who have just literally been driven crazy because of this. I think the biggest problem is that this stuff just gets to their head and they just don't know how to handle it. But the Pennsylvania Dutch and the Appalachian folk magic thing, it all goes hand in hand. But it's real. I was raised around it. I've seen things that I still don't believe sometimes, but I've seen things. So yeah.
We got 2 minutes left. Alien Critter is asking, Lon, what's your opinion of the Pennsylvania Squonk creature?
Well, it's just not relegated to Pennsylvania. I've had Squonk sightings down in Virginia, actually, down in Southern Virginia. What it is, I don't know. It's just some creature that, I guess people don't really know what it is. It's an odd looking thing. It almost looks like a pig with, I don't know, a real ugly pig. That's what I describe it as. But I don't know. I've had people tell me about it, what they've had seen. But the biggest Squonk story I ever got was in the area around Roanoke, Virginia, just south of there. And that person was pretty adamant about what they saw. So, it's just another cryptid. It's one of many cryptids that people believe are out there. But, it's not something that we run across too often.
All right, let's sneak in one more. Boz Monster is asking, have you ever heard of towns in America having a curfew because of dogmen?
No, I haven't, be honest with you. If it's a local legend or, if enough people in the town believe in it, I suppose that's possible. But, there are certain areas, especially in upper Midwest in Wisconsin, where I believe that could happen in some of these places where you've got very small towns and they have a lot of weird stuff that happens. And, of course, these dogmen are the areas around, where they have talk about the Beast of Bray Road and people have seen these similar things. Some of those villages and towns are pretty small. So I guess if enough people have seen it, they get scared. Maybe they will have some type of local ordinance about having curfews. But, quite frankly, I don't really know anything about that.
Right. Lon, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because hard to believe we are already 2 hours into tonight's show with Lon Strickler on Strange Days, filling in for the ailing Butch Witkowski, who had dental surgery earlier on today, and that's the reason why he couldn't make it, because he's just not going to be able to talk. So we got Lon Strickler here. phantomsandmonsters.com is his website, so make sure you check it out if you want any creepy, weird tales of strange creatures running around. We'll be back with more audience questions and more stories from the legendary Lon Strickler when we return on Spaced Out Radio right after this. Lon, I'm just going to run to the bathroom and I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
I'm just going to put you on mute here. Lie down, Doug. Lie down. All right, I am back here, Lon. We got about 1 minute here. All right. There we go. Lon, come on. What is this crap about voting yes for breakfast for dinner?
I knew you'd get on.
You're a better man than that. Son of a gun. Oh.
And I vote rock, too.
Oh, you sick bastard. You are sick. Unbelievable. You know, you think you know someone. Then they drop you. Oh, yeah, I eat breakfast for dinner. Son of a gun. Son of a gun. All right, we got 20 seconds. I want to say a big thank you tonight to Black Dragon, to Michael, to Double Tim, and to Space Cow for the awesome super chats. We really do appreciate all of the love and support you guys give us. Thank you to each and every veteran listening to us out there. This is always a safe home place for you. And, of course, to all our vet regulars, here we go with Hour 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone tuning on in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Judogi. Judogi is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where, you know, we can get you a plethora of features to check out, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce Lon Strickler. He's filling in for an ailing Butch Witkowski here on Strange Days that we do once a month near the end of each month, and we're talking all things monstrous out there. Lon's website, phantomsandmonsters.com. Lon, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Lon, you get a lot of reports, you know, that have happened at all over different times. Not just, you know, recent reports, but reports from 15 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. How frustrating is it for you at times to get some of these reports that are just absolutely phenomenal, and then you look at the date and it happened, say, 22 years ago?
I guess I could say better late than never, but to be quite honest with you, I do appreciate the more recent reports, but I can understand that. You know, years ago, people were just very hesitant to come out and even talk about stuff, you know. And a lot of people are still like that. But, you know, the paranormal's come more mainstream now as years have gone by. So, I mean, even though you see all this crap on TV that's, you know, not really paranormal, it's just entertainment television. But people are getting involved with the paranormal and cryptids and such because of that. So if that's the case, I guess that's fine. But yeah, it can be frustrating when you get a report that you really can't investigate anymore because it's an old report.
I can see that, but how do you even handle a report when it's way out of touch, way out of tune?
Well, you know, all I can do is just report what people tell me, giving them as much evidence and anecdotal evidence that they have, even if they have photographs or something. I can present it to the readers. You know, they can form their own opinion as to what it may be. But then again, it is what it is, and I still appreciate people coming forward with this stuff.
Are there any types of stories that you would like to investigate more?
I don't know. I don't know. With the degree of things that have happened to people, and I always know when it comes to the paranormal that something else is going to pop up. That's a given. I mean, something different is going to pop up. None of this stuff goes moot. Maybe at some point we may discover what a Bigfoot really is or whatever. Well, yeah, and people think, well, then it's moot, and we just move away from there. No, we're going to keep investigating that stuff. I mean, but things do change, and I try to keep it as fresh as possible if I can. But you're kind of stuck between the flow and whatever you get, and we go from there.
You have heard of hundreds of creatures over the years, and some from the absolutely abnormal to the unbelievable. What type of creatures are out there that our audience may not know are quite interesting to you and maybe don't get enough attention?
Well, I think this crawler phenomenon, these pale humanoids, falls into that category. There's a lot of times, even now, when I will post something like that, and somebody will come back and say, "What is that you're talking about? What is that?" And yeah, I mean, it's I can't say it's a new phenomenon, but it's something that's happening more and more recently, and I think it's worth checking into, worth investigating. Well, just like what's going on in Chicago. I mean, the winged humanoids. Sure, people have heard of Mothman. People have heard of winged humanoids and winged creatures, pterodons and thunderbirds and that. But what's going on out there is something quite different than the norm. It's not a Mothman. They may call it a Mothman, but it is nothing like a Mothman. It may be an ultra-terrestrial, but physically, it is not a Mothman. It's just something different, and that bit of difference is what kind of spurs me into looking into the deeper aspects of these things.
How many of these creatures should we actually believe? Now, we want to believe all of them, because these are alleged sightings that people are describing. And when you hear it once, it can be hard to really fathom that they are seeing what they're seeing. But when you get multiple reports, it gives you some information that things are truly going on. So out of all the reports that you're getting, is there a creature out there, like you said, with these walkers, these, I don't know how else to describe them, that you just absolutely, think, man, we need to spend more time on this. There's something here.
Yeah, and exactly what we've been investigating more recently, these winged beings and these walkers, and even with the upright canines and the dogman, we have, that's something that has really come into prominence in the past decade or so, and there's more and more sightings, and people are coming forward with these sightings. It's just like any type of phenomena that raises its ugly head. There's been other stuff as well, like the Flannel Man Phenomena. I've got one of my investigators, one of my friends and associates is Timothy Renner, and he has been investigating this Flannel Man Phenomena, where this being wearing a flannel shirt just literally transforms into some other type of being. We've also been getting these reports of not deer, where these deer-like creatures are just somewhat different than a regular deer. Their actions, the way they move about, are different. Some have strange looking legs. Some have long necks. Some have short necks. It's not the wasting disease or anything like that where they deform these tumors, or that's a natural thing. But it's just the way they look. I mean, some of them have larger eyes. Some have eyes that are forward eyes as opposed to side eyes. Yeah, it's just some really weird stuff, and that's another one that's been being seen much more often. Mostly along the Appalachians, we've been getting these sightings, but there have been sightings out west as well. So that's just another phenomena that we're looking into, and as reports come in and we start compiling this stuff, we're just going to try to form some type of conclusion as to what it is. But just like everything else, there's always some caveat's going to stick itself in there, and it's going to change it. So that's the world of cryptids.
Do you think this is all alien related in one way or another?
I think a lot of it is. Yeah, I think it is. I believe that there's an extraterrestrial connection between cryptids and some other unknown phenomena, even hauntings and such. Stan Gordon. Stan Gordon's been talking about this for years with the UFO, Bigfoot connection, and there may very well be something to that. But I do believe that, and as time has gone by, I've been more convinced of it as myself that there is a connection. And, hopefully we'll be able to pick up more of, about that. But, it's going to take some metaphysical work. It's going to take the, stepping out of the box and kind of formulating some type of opinion, then going into it and going further into it and trying to gather evidence. That's what we're trying to do now.
Interesting with that, because this can go so many different ways, with the extraterrestrial phenomena, because if the U.S. government is to believe that they don't know where these are coming from, whether it's a different dimension, whether it's from space, inner Earth, time travel, do you think that maybe all of these creatures may have that same ability to move around at these different dimensions or these different timelines?
Oh, I think they do. Yeah, I really do think they do. As far as government, I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but I think they know more than what they're saying. As far as cryptids go, yeah, I really do believe that they got their hand in a lot of this. Just like my story back in the 81 with my encounter, they knew something was going on. They were involved with something to do with that being. There have been other times when I have been involved with a case to where I have gotten that visit from a certain agency that has come directly to me and asked me to back off. That's happened 3 times for me.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it does happen. I'm not one to argue with them. If they want me to back off, I'd say, hey, no problem. I wish they'd leave me alone, because I'm not going to do anything to cause any type of national security problem. But they've got their reasons for it, I suppose. And, when you get certain witnesses and people that do kind of get on the conspiratorial side, then when they start causing problems, like they're calling their congressman or they're getting other officials involved, and then you happen to be involved with it, and that's when they start coming to you and say, hey, don't encourage this person, please. We think the guy's a nut. Well, of course they think he's a nut, because he might be telling something they don't want you to know. But look, I'm not going to argue with him.
All right, let's move on. Jazz has a question for you. What are your thoughts on the Dover Demon?
Well, that particular case that was reported by Lauren Coleman many, many moons ago, I think it was an alien being of some type. Possibly a gray, maybe something different, but overall, I think it was an alien being, ultra-terrestrial being. Yep.
Why is that? For people who may not know, maybe describe the Dover Demon, what it is.
Well, if you look at it from the way the drawings were, it looked somewhat like a gray, but then again, it had that pale humanoid aspect to it as well. The typical alien gray that's described by experiencers, they had the real thin neck, they had the bulbous head that's kind of like egg-shaped, the big eyes, the three-fingered hands, and the skinny body. Well, this thing was somewhat different than that. This was at somewhat of a thicker body, and I forget how many fingers were on this thing, but I think it was 4 or 5. The head itself seemed to be connected well with the neck. The neck was not as thin as what you would see with an alien gray. So was it some type of alien being? Maybe. Was it some type of ultra-terrestrial? Possibly. Maybe it was a pale humanoid. Maybe it was something that came up years ago before that phenomenon even came into the mainstream of paranormal. It's just something that turned up. Somebody was a witness to, and made a good story.
We got 8 minutes to go with you tonight. Mm-hmm. I can't believe how fast this show is going on by. That is completely for sure. Out of all the creatures that you have covered over the years, is there one that scares you? Is there one that haunts you?
Yeah, the canines. They really do. They scare the hell out of me. And the reason I say that is these things are huge. Butch could tell you that. Every report we get of these things are huge. And they're built, and they've got, they got thick musculature. Just like the the lichens from the Underworld series. That's what I kind of contribute to when I get these descriptions. Werewolves, I wouldn't want to come up across one of them. I really wouldn't. They stand their ground for the most part. We've had many reports from hunters who literally walk up on these things. Well, if you're upland game hunting with a shotgun, you're not even going to touch this thing with that. So that's not going to help you. So you just drop your gun and just walk out real slow. If you got a rifle, same thing. You don't know what's going to do. All you going to do is make it mad, maybe. But some of the stories that we have heard, some of the accounts we have heard related to these beings is that, yeah, they're nothing to trifle with. To me, that's very scary. A Bigfoot's maybe scary, but they seem very docile. You've had accounts of them chasing people about, but honestly, but let's just take one for instance. We had a sighting of a quadruped, a dog man like being up near the Tuscarora State Forest up near Center County. I think it was Center County. Well, anyway, this guy was in a tree stand, sitting there in a tree stand, looking out over a field. He was right on the edge of a forest, looking out over a field, and he sees these two big, huge canine things running across the field at a distance. And they're huge, but they look like canine. He said they weren't deer. He didn't know what they were. So he's sitting there, and he's still in his tree stand, and one of these things saunters up to his tree stand, sits back on its haunches, and looks up at him and watches him. This guy's got a 30-06 on him. But he described it as looking like had a wolf head. It had the body of a very muscular dog, and the back was sloped like that of a hyena. And it was quadruped, didn't get up on its hind legs. And he said this thing looked at me like it knew what I was thinking. And it sat there for about 15 minutes and just got up and walked away. And he said, I had a 30-06. I could have shot at it, but what the hell? I didn't know what this thing was going to do. This is something I'm unfamiliar with. If there's a deer, yeah, I know to take a shot at it. This thing will probably drop. It's not going to attack me. Even a bear would probably not attack him. but he had no idea what this thing would do, and that's what's scary. So, he stayed up in that tree stand for 2 hours more because he was actually getting ready to leave. It was getting later in the morning. And he said, I wasn't getting down from that thing. I kept looking down at the ground around the tree to see if this thing was coming around. And he said, when I felt I had a chance to get out, I'm gone and I'm running to my car.
I bet. My goodness. And yet we hear so many of these stories. Why do you think these creatures are allowing the hunters or the hikers to get out of town or get out of the forest or get out of the area so freely?
I don't know. Maybe they've got some conscious or something in them knowing that if they do maul somebody or kill somebody or attack them, the humans will find a way of tracking them down and killing them. And maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I've heard people talk about the possible infrasound that some cryptids can put out to like calm the person who's watching them. I've heard a lot of cases like that. I've also heard it with the upright canines. And in fact, I've heard the same thing with these winged cryptids, these winged humanoids. In 2 instances where they seem to put out this possibly infrasound. I don't know what it is, but this person would literally drop to their knees. Their legs would weaken. They drop their knees and then try to scamper away and find some place to sit away from this thing, even though they still watch it, and to try to gather themselves. I think some of these beings have the ability to do that, to literally disorient a human or warn them to not do anything rash. And, I think that may be the reason why there are no attacks or few attacks ever recorded.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, as we got about 2 minutes left with you, Jazz is wondering, what's your thoughts on the Loveland Frogmen?
Well, I think there's something out there. And I'll be honest with you, I've gotten a lot of reports along that little Miami River out in Loveland of some type of amphibious frog or amphibious creature out there. I talked to a woman who had lived out there along that river for years, and she swore up and down there were these huge frogs out there. You wouldn't see them a lot. It would have to be on a real hot night. They'd made a certain sound, but you could see them in the dark. Their eyes literally flashed, or they had the reflective eyes. I've heard a lot of stories about, you can talk about the original story with the police officer and such who actually saw this thing and reported it. I think there's something out there. I really do. Now, is it a natural being? Is it an ultra-terrestrial of some type? I don't know. I think I kind of tend toward being a natural being, but people exaggerating the actual size of it. I think that may be more closer to the truth than not. But they seem to be pretty good sized animals. So, I don't know.
It has come to that time of night where we have to say goodnight to you, Lon. I really do appreciate you stepping on in, helping out our good friend Butch Witkowski for Strange Days tonight on Spaced Out Radio. It's always a pleasure to get to chat with you, my friend.
Well, anytime you need me to come on, Dave, all you got to do is ask me.
I know, and it's always a great story time with you, too, my friend, because I'm always interested in what kind of weird stuff you were investigating every time we talk. It's always something new, always something different, and the reports keep coming. Lon Strickler, thank you so much, my friend. It's a pleasure.
You take care.
All right, Lon Strickler, everybody, as his website is phantomsandmonsters.com. It can lead you to some incredible reports from some incredible eyewitnesses on incredible creatures. Coming up next, we have the unbiased UFO report. John Hudson will be with us momentarily. Then we got Shirky Poo's Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Great job there, Lon Strickler. Great job.
Well, you know, I always love coming on with you, Dave. I do.
Oh, I love it when you're here, man. Love it when you're here. And the audience loves you too, man. That's for sure. There you go.
Like I said, if anything comes up your way, I'll definitely send it over to you, and you know, maybe we'll find out what this thing is that's going on in Vancouver at some point.
Who knows?
We'll see.
All right, buddy.
Talk to you later.
I will let you know. Take care.
Take care.
Good night. Lon Strickler, everyone. How awesome is he? Love him. Love him. How can you not like him? That's a good show. That's high-quality radio right there. High-quality radio. I can hear my dog. Can you hear him? Hey, Sasquatch, how you doing? Yeah, Duke, that show went by very fast. Great show. Great show. Awesome guest. There's little Johnny Hudson right there.
What's up, my friend?
Your hair's looking good.
Thank you, sir.
How's your Pepsi and your Coke bottle?
Oh, always good. Still drinking too many of them, but, it's pretty much my only crutch at this point. So, I'm doing better than I used to be. I used to smoke a pack and a half a day of Marlboro Reds.
Oh, my gosh.
I started when I was 12.
Thank you, Ozzy Steve, for that awesome super chat. Really do appreciate that, buddy. Really do appreciate that. Oh, and Celine is now Lady Chad Smith. My goodness.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. The audience is starting to get excited when you come on.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Yeah. You're going to be out of that Pepsi in no time. You sure you don't want a refill?
Oh, I got another can right behind it.
All right. Just making sure.
But basically, I can't get the glass bottles anymore, so I actually have to do the poor man's route and pour a can of Coke into a bottle, which I've luckily gotten pretty good at.
Well, that's good. That's good.
The funny thing about the whole Chad Smith thing is there are probably like a gazillion of them in the world. I mean, you're not talking about that unique of a name, unfortunately.
No, it's a good name, though. Good, solid name.
It is. It is.
Yep. Good, solid name. I like the whole Chad Smith thing.
It's funny.
It is. It is.
I love your description of Butch looking like a chipmunk.
Look at Bomber here. John looks like he plays the saxophone in a dark, hidden secret club of a basement in a building you can't enter without the secret password, which is Squonk, by the way.
I like that. I'll take that.
Uh-huh.
No sax. I got a guitar in the back, but no sax.
I can't wait to get Chad Smith t-shirts made up, and then that way we can get a bunch of people wearing I'm Chad Smith t-shirts. That's going to be a rock star. Cy Tyson,
the real
how are
Chad
you?
Smith, please stand up.
Yeah. We're all going to be rocking our I'm Chad Smith shirts in Vegas. Chad will be there signing autographs on each and every one of them, too. Chad, you better come up with a good signature, man.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. Not like you sign at the grocery store, man. Nothing on those digital pads. Something with some real flair to it.
Oh, yeah. Something that you can scribble in a Sharpie. Big thank you to Ozzy Steve, Space Cow, Double Tim, Black Dragon, and Michael for the super chats tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you to all the vets tuning us in. And thank you to all our regulars here every night. We love you. Here we go. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight as John Hudson is in here now for the unbiased UFO report. And this is where we bring in Mr. John, the man in the black Stetson, to keep us up to date on all the latest UFO news as John comes on in here. And we're going to kick things off right off the bat with more Luis Elizondo and the control of information on UFOs. This isn't sitting well with the UFO crowd out there.
You know, and I got to be honest. Well, I mean, first off, thank you. It's great to be here. But you know, I got to be honest. I've been an Elizondo fan for a long time. I mean, I always have a bias. I've worked a lot with the community that he's from and with other branches. And I come from a family with deep Navy roots, so you know, I certainly have some biases there. But I've always had a good feeling about Lou. And I got to admit, even this isn't sitting terribly well with me. You know. Well, let me explain a little more about it first. The challenge is that a lot of people have suspected that there has been a narrative, or that there has been some sort of a control mechanism in the release of information. That somehow the release of information has been timed and has been organically released. And a lot of us have tried to stave off those suspicions because we wanted to think well of everyone involved. But essentially, in this interview that he did on Friday, and I'll provide a link to it with a timestamp, he talked about the fact that he was asked why has there been this gap in news, and what he talked about was that it was not accidental at all, and it wasn't that someone came down and clamped down. It wasn't that someone got in trouble. It was that he and some of his peers essentially had gotten together and decided on their own for their own reasons that it was a good time to throttle back. And he gave good analogies about, not firing all your bullets at once, about not running your ovens too hot, about, controlling the quality of content, about letting people digest information. And the challenge is that all the things he said are true. All the things he said would be logical. If you were actually controlling flow control, you would care about those things because, and I do believe that he does care a lot about the quality of how disclosure comes out. But unfortunately, what it showed was that there is a flow control method in place. And this makes me, and I think a lot of us, question all the way back to the beginning, has anything been organic? Has any news item come out on its own time? Or has everything been this orchestrated, symphony of things? And the truth is, even if it has been, that doesn't necessarily mean there's any malicious intent. We always have to separate the action from the intent. But the problem is we don't have any way of knowing what the intent is. So it could be malicious. It may not be malicious. We have no way of knowing. We're not privy to it. And we don't even know who has a vote. We don't even know who's making those decisions, who's influencing those decisions, what the end goal of those decisions are. So it brings up a lot of questions and a lot of challenges. And it's a hard topic.
Well, you know what? I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here. In the regards that I think that there is somebody above Elizondo who has shut things down. All right? This isn't Elizondo. This isn't the people around him. There are people above them that are giving them orders. Let's remember, Elizondo is still a government contractor. Okay? And I'm saying this as a fan of his. But when you have the whole world watching every move. And look, I understand Elizondo was burnt out. Every day he was on 1 to 2 podcasts, sometimes 3. All right? And his team, which includes Sean Cahill, who's been a guest on this show, they were all burnt out. I know that for a fact. I was told that. All right? But that doesn't mean that you stop the flow of information. That's like when you get a band who has a one hit or one album that just goes absolutely crazy, and then you don't see them go on tour. You know, they just disappear. And that is not good for the narrative. And I think what more people need to be concerned about here, John, is the fact is this proves officially what myself and many others have been talking about since 2017 about the narrative that is going on with this subject. And when a narrative is out there, it is controlled. And we got to be aware of that because it's not about the information we have. It's about the information we don't have, John.
Oh, and is it being released in a way that causes us to process it in a way that's different than how we naturally would have? It's very, very easy to take a set of news events and reorder them to create a different emotional effect than you would have if they came out in their natural, kind of log of method. There's all sorts of ways that you can play with this if you're really into that kind of world. And I mean, and I have been in worlds where, we've been doing big product releases and we haven't had a strict narrative, but we've gotten to a point where we're like, whoa, this is getting a little out of control. Let's dial it back a little bit and let's get our decks straight, sort of a thing. So I have been in situations where we have dialed it back a little bit because we felt like we were losing control and it wasn't part of a huge narrative. But I think in this case, I think what you said is very pertinent. This is a big deal with a lot of eyes on it. Now, my big question is that, is some of the influencing factors, I guess what I'm getting to is that I think the influencing factors could be something as simple as it being Hal Puthoff, right? Or Senator Reid, or even Kit Green. There's a couple people, Hal Puthoff in particular, who has been in this game for a long time, knows probably more. The only person that probably knows as much or more than Puthoff is Elizondo. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if a lot of the direction was being provided by Hal. And so what I don't know is the direction being provided by someone maybe not in their exact peer group, but someone in a kind of an adjacent peer group, or is there any involvement of White House staff?
Could be. Either way, I do believe that the public who has big time interest in UFOs needs to understand and learn very quickly that we aren't going to get the truth, all right? The information is going to keep trickling and seeping out. We're not going to get a flood because they are only telling us what they want us to hear. Let's move on here to number 2. A lot of people...
One quick point.
Yeah.
One quick point is that we also talked about this in great detail on Friday night's roundtable, and I'll provide a link to that as well if people want to listen to that.
Perfect. A lot of people may not know who the name of Frank Kendall, all right, but he is the Secretary of the United States Air Force, and he had some very interesting summations about unidentified aerial phenomena. Take it away.
Yeah, so this was very interesting. This was this was a kind of a formal statement that was made by him, and keep in mind that in any military branch there is a secretary of that branch, and that's more on the political side, and then there is a senior commander, an admiral, a chief of naval operations, something like that is on the other side, that is actually really part of that military. So he's a teeny bit detached. Usually has a background, but usually a little more on the DC side. And basically what he said was, and he said it in such a way that it really sounds very logical. And he basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, look, there are a lot of things in the sky that are a known threat to us. And there's a lot of things being added to the sky that are a known threat to us, that we're trying, didn't say desperately, but we're having to put a lot of resources into keeping an eye on and defending this country from. And right now, I have not seen a shred of evidence that any of this phenomenon is a direct threat to the United States or to the Air Force. And basically, until I see that, until I can see clear evidence, or I'm given direction that it is a direct threat that we can do something about, there's absolutely no reason for me to spend a dime on it. But what was really interesting was he also said, but I know people are looking into it. I know it's incredibly interesting. I mean, he completely, threw the bone that, look, I recognize this is going on. I'm not saying it's not going on. And I recognize it's pretty cool. It's actually quite interesting. But to us, it's not part of our job, right? And it was quite a shutdown, but it was done in an incredibly pragmatic and rather friendly way when you really get down to it.
Okay, but for the U.S. Secretary of the United States Air Force to have him now talking about this subject and saying there is no threat phenomena, that goes right against the grain that we have heard Marco Rubio speaking of, Mark Warner speaking of, and people like Luis Elizondo and others, especially Christopher Mellon, on media broadcasts. So are we seeing a division now in what this phenomena is? Because we always knew there were factions. There was the group that didn't want this story out and the group that was pushing for it. Now are we seeing the threat versus non-threat factions?
Well, and the thing is it does this now actually educate us better about where that divide is? I think a lot of people assumed this whole time that the pushback that we were hearing about from the Air Force was because they knew something. It was because they had some inside track, or they were getting, technology from it that they didn't want to let out. What if that wasn't the case at all? What if the whole reason why there's this divide is because they're saying, you guys are lying, right? Like, there is no threat, right? Like, we recognize you think you have to lie to get money allocated. And if you want to go do that, you go right ahead, but we're not going to have any part of it, right? We have no interest in playing that game, right? And is that where the divide came, right? The other thing to consider is that the Space Force reports to the Air Force. The Space Force is part of the Air Force in the same way that the Marine Corps is part of the Navy. And so what that means is that this guy may not have he doesn't have a direct line, I believe, to the commander of the Space Force, but through the commander of the Air Force he does. And what if, and I'm just throwing out a what if here, what if he delegated it? Let's face it, the Space Force just took a big part of their budget, got a bunch more, took a boatload of their staff away and assigned it to another unit. The Air Force was not a fan of the Space Force being created in the first place. They fought it. And now the Space Force has been created, and I wouldn't be at all surprised, and I'm totally shooting at the moon here, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Air Force commanders just said, oh, look, the Space Force, good, you deal with it. And just, kick the can down the road. And we just don't know.
All right, moving on here, because we only got a couple of minutes left. Nick Madrid, who has been in our chat room before, and Nick's a good fan of the show, and he's quite the researcher in UFOs as well. He's really starting to take this seriously. He has a new report out. What does it say?
Well, I mean, essentially, I don't mean to pick on Nick at all. I think it's a beautiful article. I think it's very, very well written. For me personally, and I have a challenge here because of how much research I do. For me personally, there wasn't anything in it that I would consider to be, completely unheard of before. But what it is it's a beautiful piece that is a really nice balance of detail and perspective with the narrative case we've been seeing. And so if you read through it, you get a really good point of view of what might have been happening during these different stages. And the thing I do like is he goes in a little more about the possibility of other groups being involved in decision making, and other groups being involved in influence, whether it be clergy, whether it be other sort of groups and so forth. And so it's a great article. I encourage everyone to read it. But in many ways, I think those of us that are really deep in the woods here, start having a challenge finding, any content where we're like, wow, like I've never seen that before. And whereas I think there's probably most people who read this, will probably find 2 or 3 things that they hadn't heard of before. And so I think it's, I encourage everyone to read it. I really enjoyed it, but I can't really pick out anything that I was like, quite shocked and thrown back by.
It's going to be very interesting as we see this story develop. Where do you see it going from here?
I really struggle at this point. I don't, I really struggle because to me, the entire point of all of this, of all of this to the very end, is a cultural exchange and an economic exchange. To me, that's the whole point of contact. The whole point of contact is I want to hear their music. I want to taste their food. I want to do commerce with them. And I think there's a lot of people involved that are focused on very short-term goals, and I don't know what they are. Are they military dominance? Are they a technology achievement? Are they an explorer achievement? The ability to reach a certain star system or reach a certain place. I think there could be a lot of short-term goals that I don't necessarily glue to because I'm more focused on a longer-term goal. And to be honest, it makes me very nervous.
Well, let's make sure you're not too nerved up because you got to get some sleep tonight. Thank you, Chad Smith, or John Hudson, for the unbiased UFO report. Always appreciate you, my friend. We'll talk to you in a couple nights' time.
Thank you, sir. You have a good evening.
Let's get to the news. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the odd. Cows with injuries or pregnancies preventing them from making their annual trip through the Swiss Alps receive some help in the form of helicopter rides. Farmers in Ernerboden area say the 1,000-strong herd is due to descend the Cloudness Mountain Pass in their annual bovine parade, but some cows were too injured or too pregnant to make the trip. About 10 cows, unable to take the long walk, were lifted from mountains via helicopter. Farmers said the cows did not seem fazed by their helicopter rides once back on the ground. Good for them being human. Good for them being human and helping out. That would be terrible if some of those cows died. I like cows. Employees at a Tennessee thrift store found a stash of World War II letters in a donated jewelry box and were able to return them to the family. Melinda Brummett was examining some donated items earlier this month at the Goodwill store in Kingsport when she found an old jewelry box with a broken leg and brought her to her discovery to co-workers Holly Saylor and Isabella Hinton. It was kind of heavy, so I picked it up, opened it up, took out the letters, took the first one out and read it, and I was like, this is a mistaken donation. The letters were written by Gene Herron while serving in Germany in 1944. They were addressed to his childhood sweetheart, Betty. The Goodwill employees agreed the letters should be returned to the family, and Brummett was able to do so when Brian Shelby returned to the store, and she recognized him as the man who had brought the items in for donation. It just so happened the day he came back, I was working donations again, and I was like, we've got something for you. Shelby, Gene, and Betty's grandson had mistakenly brought the jewelry box to the store while donating items that had been earmarked for donation by his mother, Gail Skelton, the couple's daughter. Skelton said the family hadn't looked inside the jewelry box and didn't know the letters existed. We didn't know they really existed. To have someone find them and return them, it was amazing, just listening to someone we didn't even know we had, Skelton said. Interesting. Finally, a Swiss canton is rewarding its long-lived residents by offering 100 bottles of wine to those who reach the age of 100. Fribourg State Bailiff Klaus Friederberghaus said preparations are currently underway to present a resident named Marie Antoinette with a bouquet of flowers and the offer for 100 bottles of wine when she turns 100 on November 5th. The man said the canton first came up with the scheme in 2000 and formally offered a free armchair as a substitute for the wine, but the chair was discontinued in 2015 due to a lack of interest by the local centenarians. He said the current program offers a charitable donation or a voucher for use at a local merchant or craftsman to residents who decline the wine offer, but most 100-year-olds, well, they want to get ripped on their birthday. They really do want to get ripped. In 2020, they celebrated 27 centenarians in the area. 5 of them opted for the donation and 2 for the gift vouchers. In other words, they were ready to party. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the SOR Newswire. Thank you to John Hudson for coming on in and doing the unbiased UFO report, which happens every couple nights here on Spaced Out Radio, and to Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com, filling in for the ailing Butch Witkowski on strange days. Butch had some dental surgery, so he couldn't make it tonight, couldn't talk, so we had to find someone else. Lon did admirably. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone choosing us to listen to on our chat rooms on YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
make a mistake. We're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has stopped for tonight, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.